Welcome everyone. This is absolutely fantastic to have so many people here at a meetup. I don't remember the last time we all were together. So brilliant to have you all here, and thank you for coming. I wish you all a lot of success this year and a lot of growth. So this should be trivial for everyone. I think there's probably a few new faces here, but we are a vendor that's been around since '93. KDB, anyone not familiar with KDB? Good audience. So some notes that I had here. What's changed in KX? We're effectively now purely a software business, not a consultancy firm, not a solutions firm. In terms of end-to-end solutions, that's services, and we hope that you guys can help us along the journey. Really, there's been a few leadership updates on the KX side. So we have a new CEO, new CPO, new CTO, new CGO, lots of changes, very, very exciting, and I'm sure some of you will get to meet our CTO tonight as well. So just a reminder, where does KX fit in a reference architecture? We're really well known for big data, for streaming data, but where we see ourselves quite unique is the ability to do both. In reference architectures, you see lots of managed services, lots of open source trying to stitch together these things, and effectively KX is a technology that allows you to simplify that reference architecture, and we see incredible value in the journey to the cloud. All of these big cloud data warehouses, and you're having to cobble together architectures. I think we have a massive USP. And on the next slide, so this is a customer survey that we did a couple of years ago. And effectively what we found were hopefully not too surprising to everyone. In terms of number one, customers really wanted to hire mainstream data science users, and compatibility and interoperability, ease of use was something that was really important for them. Number two, they really wanted to build more use cases and essentially get to production a lot quicker, not have to maybe hire too many resources, be able to effectively use standard deployment templates and assemblies to kind of actually burst some of the data science use cases that they had. On-demand compute makes real sense, less CapEx, more OpEx. You might have heard the term separating compute and storage, so that's something that's become very popular in the last few years. Democratized data access as well, so data products, the ability to discover this data mesh, data fabric concept is something that was very, very common. Anyone, anywhere should be able to access the data. Number four was something that we actually hear quite a lot from customers. They're running out of memory, they're turning off data feeds, they're unable to replay ticker plant logs at the end of the day. They fail over to the other side. So really, those common pain points are something that they really see as toil. In the cloud, that's what they call toil. It's kind of maintenance tasks, support tasks that really aren't value add, and they wanted their engineers to kind of shift more higher value tasks aligned to what the business needs were. Number five was, again, something that our customers don't necessarily have problems with today, but it's something that's absolutely essential to run their businesses, and being able to compress time to alpha, get more value is something that if they don't have, they're completely at risk, or as they would refer to it, flying blind. So what we're here today is obviously to announce some of the new SKUs that we've developed, of all of the customer feedback, of all of the R&D initiatives that we've had over the last 2 years. This is kind of where KX is today. So 3 major product SKUs. Number one, KDB Plus, going nowhere. It's absolutely the stock of what we do, and it's the core to everything. Effectively, what we're doing with Insights, which is the new product, is making the technology a lot easier to use for new mainstream resources, making it easier to scale, more kind of typical patterns that you would see with other container technologies, and KDB Insights is really that. So starting with the Insights core, effectively it's a cloud version of KDB Plus, open APIs, REST APIs, support for ANSI SQL, Open API compatibility, support for object storage, and that's literally a zero refactor change. So you can get started with that today. It's available on our website as of Monday. And we have lots of customers in production. I'm going to be talking about one of those in just a moment. PyKX, I'm not going to cover this. Andrew and Nathan are going to cover this in their demo. It's fantastic. Essentially, KDB Plus loaded into Python, and tons of new use cases, supercharging Python workloads. The limits are literally endless. On the microservices side, we've effectively containerized common traditional architecture patterns into a core group of workflows. So I'll talk about those a little bit later. And then on the Insights Enterprise side, we have Owen, who's going to give a demo of low-code backtesting. And that's really, it's an enterprise solution. It's Kubernetes-based, completely redundant. It's highly scalable, built with the microservices, which are built on top of the core. So it's kind of like the 3 layers to an onion. Core, and then microservices are built in core, and microservices then form the enterprise product. So the other thing to mention is that these have been built in tandem with our customers. We've effectively been building these for the last 2 years, hand in hand with some of our biggest tier 1 customers. There's a customer council that's been established, and really this has been constant innovation with our customers for the last 2 years. It's not just KX building a new product in a black box. I found this quote last week. It was something that I think will resonate as we go through the PyKX demo. So essentially, the value that KDB has is really unrivaled, and this is actually a comment on Hacker News that I came across, and really the value's there. It's just how do we get mainstream access to it? And this is another quote on the second line, which is essentially a user at a major US hedge fund who I've actually worked with personally, and this quote is just fantastic, and I hope you'll think something similar whenever you see PyKX in the demo. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a project that we worked on with this big tier 1 customer. Essentially, and I hope you can read this, they got to the cloud in 4 months. Some of the service partners might have been involved in this account as well, but essentially it was the fastest KDB cloud migration and fastest cloud adoption in the bank's history. 4 months of production. Basically, everything was on par with on-premise. The cost was 80% less than what on-premise was, and it really just opened up an absolute ton of new value for the business users. They were able to store way more history of the data. They were able to scale. They were able to use much less KDB support people to turn off feeds, to kind of help on the disk side as well, like running out of capacity on-prem was a problem. And this was a massive FX pricing data set. So tons of value. Now for the sausage making, how did they do this? I think there's been skepticism that like, how do you get to the cloud with 80% cost savings? So there's tons of these projects that are coming up, and we're hand in hand with the cloud providers trying to basically template this, make blueprints for the next migrations and so forth. So effectively, this customer, they were on AWS. We have some people from AWS here tonight. Hello. First thing that they did was essentially to take a recap of what they had on-premise. Their users connected on-prem, and they ran queries against on-prem HDBs. So data was stored on POSIX, right? So block storage. So how did they get to the cloud? They migrated their data, right? They copied all the data to S3. They spun up some of the KDB Insights core within Kubernetes. They've now migrated to the microservices, but this was the initial project. So they copied their data to S3. They spun up a HDB in the cloud that scaled. Essentially, the next thing they did was every query that came on-prem, they then rerouted a second query to the cloud. And the same queries ran against that AWS architecture. So from there, they essentially did some reconciliation. They checked the results were the same. They checked execution times were within reason. And in issues where they identified deltas, they fixed those and essentially got those two systems to be identical. The next thing they did was pretty smart. So every query that came on-prem now routed to AWS and executed and returned data from AWS as the primary. But if queries ever failed, they actually just rerouted them back on-prem. So they had complete failover if there was any issues. And then finally, no-brainer, they got rid of the data on-prem. So that's how they got the 80% cost savings. They actually had to get rid of disks back on-prem. In terms of the value delivered, I'll flash this up for a second. We are going to be sharing these slides after. I think there's a QR code for those, so we'll share them out after if not. But yeah, effectively this was project one for this customer. What they did next was all because of the success of this project. So that bullet point at the very bottom in bold, this project is the first project that every single customer does. They go to the cloud, they check their data sets, their queries are aligned, the results are the same, the benchmarks are the same, the value is there, and then the next projects start, and it's been brilliant for this customer. They've had huge success, tons of promotions. It's been a real journey for them, and it's the pattern that we're going to have every time. In terms of why KDB Insights for me was important, I was a consultant for 5 years in New York. This essentially will allow you to learn new technologies, new cloud skills, things that are properly transferable, things that can be used in any company in the world. A lot of our customers are obviously starting to migrate KDB to the cloud, and this technology that we've developed in tandem with our partners, in tandem with our customers, will really allow you to essentially learn these cloud skills. The other thing that's important is, especially for the customer I just referenced, these guys are getting promoted. They're having huge success. They're in positions now that they might not have been without the ability to move these KDB workloads to the cloud. What we're also hearing is definitely that like the cloud is not the end state. They're essentially using the cloud as a journey. It's not always a destination, but piece by piece, they're moving these workloads. And if there's value in the cloud, they're absolutely open to do it. More interesting roles available. Again, this kind of falls into the less support, do more interesting analytics use cases. I know from my perspective, I've been involved in support roles before in the past, sitting watching the markets during Brexit, sitting watching the markets during a US election. It's all hands on deck, and I don't think that would be the case if these systems were designed to scale from day to dot. And then last but not least, some of you might have seen new job postings in new industries. We have a lot of customers. The customers outside of capital markets are starting to become plenty, and we're definitely going to see a massive uptick in new use cases within F1, telco, even in like things like retail banking. Anything where there's time series data is going to need KDB, and we're starting to really see massive adoption outside of just typical finance.